Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Telling It Like It Is. My name is Jade Alberts, the founder of Peer Guidance. We listen, guide, and connect small businesses, startups, and entrepreneurs. Sharing stories and telling is why I started this podcast or Facebook Live show. It is live. If you do have any questions, please ask away. If you're watching this after the fact, ask your questions. They will be answered. I would like to thank Community Now Magazine for their support. Krista Malden does an outstanding job. If you need to check them out, go to their website, communitynowmagazine.com. Their website will be in the comment section shortly. You can just click on it and it'll direct you right to the site. Today's Telling It Like It Is guest is Jacqueline Green, founder of Great Parenting Simplified. Jacqueline, how are you today?
Oh, I'm fantastic and delighted to talk to you, Jade. I love what you're doing.
Oh, I appreciate it. I also love what you're doing, and I know we were connected through the rainforest and Rhea Haley, and just before we were talking about saying you never done a Facebook Live, which is actually shocking because you're always doing.
Just be live. It's this exact.
Be live. Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I found that weird. I was like, you're always online. You're always doing videos. So that was something that I was like, oh, she's had to have done it. So I know you're based out of Edmonton. I'll do a brief introduction here, and we will get into the questions. So Jacqueline is the founder of the International Great Parenting Simplified movement. She's also the author of the upcoming book, Strong Enough to Stay, Work It Out or Leave Happy. She's been a parenting coach, educator, and popular speaker for over 20 years, specializing in helping stressed out professionals, women who have school-age kids. Since 2010, Jacqueline has also interviewed over 150 of the world's top parenting-related educators. And I think that's just awesome when you have access to that type of knowledge and information. And when we were talking, and some of the quotes you use, I just love it. It says, parenting brought me to my knees. Can you explain what that means and how you used that experience to start this international movement?
Yeah, it's an interesting experience because, of course, things that bring us to our knees often seem like horrible things. And at the time, it certainly felt horrible. I found myself, my now ex-husband and I moved to the middle of the Great White North, is how I like to describe it, because so many of our audience is in other parts of the world. And Edmonton, Alberta, that whole area is Great White North. And when we ended up out in Edson, Alberta, things escalated, and I ended up taking the kids to a women's shelter because I needed to stop the escalating physical violence. And that experience at the time made me want to leave the planet. But I had these beautiful kids, and I knew that was a horrific legacy for them. And it started a rebuilding process for me. I hadn't really recognized how shut down I was. Yeah. But even professionally, I was very shut down prior to having kids. And it started a really massive rebuilding process that has led to me being, dramatically happier after that experience and a dramatically better mom.
So I mean, that is an interesting answer, and I guess everybody experiences, trauma and however you want to phrase it in different ways. Did you actually see something coming out of this through your experience and saying, oh, I have to help people, or was it I got to focus on myself first?
Yeah, it's an interesting experience. So I felt a calling to help parents, but at first, the very first year that I started way back in 2001, I really needed the tools myself. So I've always been partly about me getting the tools and passing on the tools. There's nothing like being a teacher to get you to prepare for the lesson and to have to understand the material. And I did find it a really debilitating experience, though, because I did quite a few years of teaching classes. I studied under one of the world's foremost developmental psychologists, Dr. Gordon Neufeld, and I found I couldn't apply the material. And what I ended up discovering is I was already on my own mental health recovery journey, and that really was key to me turning things around. And the crazy thing that I'm finding during the pandemic is so many parents are actually experiencing very similar stress levels to what I was experiencing then. And they're having the same challenges of feeling like they're in the middle of nowhere. They're stuck in their homes often. And while things are loosening up at the moment, that's been a really intense and really traumatic experience for a lot of parents.
Oh no, I agree. I mean, we experienced it firsthand, right? I mean, I'm a work from home guy for about 20 years. My wife wasn't. We had some stresses there when obviously with the girls and our oldest daughter being in late French immersion, we can't really help her. We don't speak French, and then all of a sudden you realize that I'm not very good with our youngest daughter. I'm not definitely not smarter than a fourth grader. It was trying to fit everything in, and I agree with those new challenges. So with those new challenges that you saw or that COVID brought on, how have you seen parents adapt or?
Yeah, it's interesting. The most successful parents, what I'm seeing, that they've learned a lot about trusting their instincts, telling the schools in some cases, hey, we're not doing that. That doesn't work. And it's been interesting because in some cases the schools feel pressure to keep workloads up. The parents I'm seeing who are being the most successful are lowering their expectations and really taking advantage of what opportunities there are now, which are more family connection times. You actually have an opportunity even over the summer now to help your kid be a better learner than they were before potentially, or re-tap into that love of learning. So that's some of what I've seen be the most successful. Of course, on the other hand, parents who've tried to continue to do it all and now just add homeschooling and working from home on top of the mix, those parents are the ones struggling the hardest because it is absolutely literally impossible to do it all.
Oh, absolutely. And you've brought up a valid point in your answer before, talking about mental wellness and even through Community Now magazine, and I've hosted events with them and sat on panels, and it's something that I'm passionate about. Have you seen a lot of I guess issues arrive with parents because of the extra load that they've had to take on?
Absolutely. And yes, I know Krista Meldon's work in Community Now. It's so important.
Yeah.
And yes, I've seen a lot more mental health issues, a lot of rage, a lot of moms really, and I'm saying moms because that's my main audience, but moms and dads losing it with their spouses, losing it with their kids. Because when you are super stressed, it's going to come out. And so it's one of the reasons why I so strongly emphasize taking care of ourselves, putting us on the list. And if your child actually goes back to school next fall and they didn't learn everything, they can catch up. But your mental health infects your kid's mental health. And when we are at a point of raging, it's because our body's trying to tell us, you deserve better. You have rights here, and rights to sleep, to some me time that might mean your kids are on media that you don't usually like, or whatever. So yeah, I've seen a lot of big issues right now.
Again, I'm talking with Jacqueline Green, the founder of Great Parenting Simplified. You can click on their link in the comments section. You also said something that it's almost not in my vocabulary, saying you've got to lower your standards or lower your expectations, which is very, very hard for people who are, it's always, you got to make goals, you got to be driven, you got to do this. And even kids in school, right? You got to get 90, 100 or whatever it may be to move forward. So that's got to be a very difficult thing for parents.
Well, it's a mindset shift, and it's part of the shift that I needed to go down. And sorry, I think there's a little bit of a lag, but that was part of the shift I needed to go down as a mom. I was raised, my parents have 6 university degrees, 3 and 3, Dr. David Green, my mom with her master's and 2 bachelors. They had very high standards. And I was actually a massive perfectionist. And perfectionism will drive anxiety and depression like nothing else. And our kids nowadays are more anxious and depressed than ever before. So we have to get off that hamster wheel, and we have to take the leadership. And the way to get off it is actually lowering our standards. Did you know, Jade, top performing athletes, they've done wonderful studies about how they set realistic expectations, and then they consistently overachieve them, but they keep lowering their expectations, because if you're too perfectionistic, you'll burn out, you'll get discouraged, you will not have the staying power, and you'll rage at your kids. You will, absolutely.
Oh, that's interesting, hearing the lowering your expectations. I mean, we always talk about setting realistic goals, right? And not setting something up here that you can't achieve. And then even though you might have way overachieved on what you should have done, you see it as a failure. So I guess that makes sense.
Yes, it's exactly the same principle. And I learned it first in university when I was first starting to struggle with depression. I didn't recognize it even then, but my brother had died and I was really just grief struck and had lost my mooring. And someone convinced me to take a study skills class, a counselor did, and to start aiming for B's. Well, I had straight A's after that, right? Because and prior to that, I was forcing myself to study things that didn't even appeal to me and getting C's and feeling like a loser. And the more I'd feel like a loser, the less I'd want to study and the worse things got. So it was just fascinating to me. And as a parent, it's equally important because when we aim for A's with our kids, does that show them a fixed mindset or a growth mindset? Like, does it give them room to learn and grow? Or does it make their life a performance?
Yeah, I mean, when I hear your answer, I think, are they doing it for themselves or are they trying to do it because that's what I want?
Yeah. And when they do it because we want them to do it, that makes them extrinsically motivated, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, and through all my coaching at high level hockey, I've seen, I mean, I used to just call them super parents, right? I mean, they just drive their kids. And when they get to midget AAA or Bantam AAA, when I would be coaching them, they would sit down and say, "Hey, Jay, do you mind if I sit down with the parents at the kitchen table because I don't want to play hockey anymore. I'm tired of it. I want to do other things. And I want to go on with my life. I'm not going to get anywhere, but I'm not enjoying it because I'm not doing it for me."
Mm-hmm.
No, those are interesting comments. I never really thought our conversation would go that way, but I'm really happy it did.
Well, it's more important now than ever because realistically, even as the summer hits, that we're starting summer from a place we've never started before, and many parents are still working from home, and stress levels are still high in that. So really, like, lower your expectations for the summer too. Aim for B's, aim for some good times as a family, and let whatever evolves, of course, evolves, because aiming for B's means that some C's happen too, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that being said, obviously, I mean, our girls were disappointed because we can't go to the lake and it's in a provincial park and they didn't really want interprovincial travel. So it's a tough conversation when it's something they really look forward to, those 2.5 weeks. So do you see things after summer? I don't know if it's I hear people saying that they're tired of hearing what's the new normal going to be. How do you think that things will adapt when it gets into the fall?
Well, some of the same things I said about, the most successful parents are going to be lowering their expectations and really working on their own stress and anxiety and, their overwhelm, because realistically, we have a new normal, and anxiety has already been dramatically on the rise over the last couple of decades, and it took a really big spike recently. The more crazy, here's a crazy side fact. The more we stay in our fear, the less safe we are. And the reason we're less safe, and I'm taking this from Gavin de Becker, who talks about the gift of fear, and it's a book I read a few times because of being in a marriage that got very challenging. And one of the nuggets I got from that is, in order to keep myself safe, to keep my kids safe, we have to keep our alarm system down so that we can hear the real alarms, so that we can hear anything urgent. If we're just constantly up like this, it's like the boy who cried wolf. And we actually get debilitated because that's all we're doing. So really, the moms and dads who are going to be the most successful are going to continue to work on their mindset, continue to work on having a growth mindset. Your child's future is not going to be determined by 6 months or even 2 years. If this goes on that long, it's not. The more we can, I'm not saying it won't change their lives, but the more we can relax into what's possible and take precautions for sure, but then take the precautions and move on. And that's not always simple. Sometimes we have to get support to do that, but it's extremely important because we are the psychological air our children are breathing. and their mental health is going to make a massive difference on their IQ, their ability to perform and to be happy, successful children.
So I guess if you're having issues, and I mean, obviously, I mean, I'm sure many of our listeners do, or people that are going to be watching this do, is it, I guess, is it easy to have a family discussion about that? Is it easy to access help? Is it something that you should have a talk around the table with first, or should you kind of reach out to somebody to facilitate that?
Yeah, great question. My experience is that, it's like as a coach, when you're coaching hockey, you had to have your head on, because what you felt, if you felt your team wasn't going to make it, that would come through, and in various ways that would come through to your the kids you're coaching, right?
Yeah.
So my experience is that as parents, we need to look at ourselves and look at, okay, how am I doing? Am I in a calm, optimistic place, or at least an okay place where I'm trusting I can get through this? If not, what support do I need to get there? Putting it out on our kids right away, if we're not already in that calm headspace, can actually destabilize our kids, because they'll feel our energy, right? That saying everything is energy, it actually is, if anything, more true in parenting, because our kids cannot help but absorb our energy.
No, I mean that absolutely makes sense, right? I guess it's kind of the old airplane analogy: put your mask on own mask on first, right?
Totally.
Yeah, I mean it does make sense. You can't help other people if you yourself are struggling. So I mean, I know I've always bought into that. I've always believed that, and again, I mean it's something that I think and I hope moving forward that mental wellness will move into that. Well, let's not wait till you're broken to fix it. Let's get into preventing you from getting there.
Exactly. And when we're alarmed about our kids, because we know nowadays, like, everything's on the rise. Suicide, anxiety, depression, suicide is an outcome of those things. We know that kids are more stressed than ever before. If we're not looking at ourselves, and it's so easy to look at them because we're alarmed, but the more we're alarmed, the more we're not in our beautiful prefrontal cortex, we're not going to make great decisions. And we're going to just continue to feed that energy that is hurting our kids too. Of course, as parents, we're heroes and heroes. We are doing incredible work in the craziest of times. So all of this is to say, you deserve support. You're doing a phenomenal job in a really tough situation. And rather than focus all your energy on your kids, focus some of that energy on getting the support you need. And it's not always easy to find, but it is out there. Absolutely.
No, absolutely. Well, that kind of just rolls right into my next my next question. Let's talk a little bit about Great Parenting Simplified. How can you help that? What type of services do you offer? And I guess where are you going to go with your company?
Yeah, great question. Well, we definitely pivoted in lots of ways with the pandemic. And one of the ways that we have pivoted is we started a program to be able to give some sponsorships to people who really could not afford to get any support. And we are approaching and getting more sponsors to support that. Where we're going with Great Parenting Simplified, we already do a lot of coaching, high-end coaching in small groups. We get moms. So far, we only have taken moms into the group. We haven't had dads even want in, but 4 groups of 4 women. And that's an aside, but the masculine often has a different way of getting help than women, which I really respect. And we take them through a 6-month process, because change is a process, not an event. And if you're parenting nowadays and you're having issues, chances are really good you need some time to figure out how to shift that boat so that you hit a different destination, right? Give it that 2-degree shift. So we do a lot of small group coaching. We have a membership for parents that's just starting, for parents who want to just get in. The first thing we're going to do is a pause button challenge to help you in the moment when you're ready to lose your lid and ready to blow up with your kids. And then we're going to have a 2.0 version of the 8th Great Parenting Simplified expert interview series. So we have a lot of different things that we're doing, and we'd love anyone to join us.
Oh, that's awesome. Again, talking to Jacqueline Green, the founder of Great Parenting Simplified. Go into the comments section, click on their website, and all the information that we've talked about today, all the access. I know you have a newsletter that you can sign up for, so that is great. You have done how many? How you said 150 of the top world expert when it comes to parenting. How did you find them?
I think it's closer to 160 now. And the really fun thing is when I started, so I started as a parenting educator almost 20 years ago. And then 10 years in, I felt the calling to start spreading some of this information to parents. And I knew that there are other parents struggling for sure because I had been working with them. So I started doing an expert interview series by telephone from Edson, Alberta. And part of the reason I'm smiling is because I was working with people like Dr. John Gray from the Men Are From Mars guy down in California, Lisa Nichols, one of the stars from The Secret, Mark Victor Hansen, co-author to Chicken Soup for the Soul. And so I was interviewing them by phone from Edson, Alberta, this little town of 10,000 people in the middle of nowhere. And it was a phenomenal experience because it gave me the repetition I needed to keep going down this road of learning better ways.
No, that's awesome, and I'm sure when you're talking about that type of level of people that you're talking to, it's astronomical, and I'm sure that gave you not I don't think hope's the right word, but I'm always, when I tell people, reach out there and ask, because it doesn't matter who it is, who they are, they're always willing to share their knowledge.
Yeah, well, and it is amazing being an entrepreneur, of course, and I know that's most of your audience. It's an intense and wonderful personal growth journey in and of itself. And yeah, it's been a phenomenal part of my parenting, improving my own parenting. And I had a beautiful discussion with my son last night where he totally saw that I was a challenging mom in many ways when I was younger. And he said something like, "You've dramatically changed." And it's so wonderful to have that gift to be able to show him even that people can change.
No, absolutely.
Instilling the growth mindset for him. So for me, being an entrepreneur and then a parent coach was a phenomenal part of my personal journey as well as professional.
And that quote you said before, change is a process, not an event. I think that's probably what's going to stick with me the most out of everything that you said. I've never heard that before, and I absolutely love that.
I'm delighted to spread that. Yeah, I learned that at some point because when I wanted to leave the planet when the kids were little, because I had a fixed mindset that said, "Jacqueline, you've made bad choices. You're in a horrible situation. You'll never get out." And I needed to realize that change was a process. And so that means if I got an F, if I just screamed at my kids, that didn't mean that I couldn't learn. It just meant that I needed to keep, being curious. Well, what support do I need to make sure I thrive and make sure my kids thrive?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I know my last question has been the same, and I say this a lot. I thought it would change it, but I get so many great answers. But I'd like to put a little spin on it, because yes, we do have entrepreneurs, and a lot of our entrepreneurs are parents or small businesses. So the spin I want to put on it is, what advice would you give to these entrepreneurs that are parents if you had one piece of advice for them to move forward?
Well, it's wonderful because as entrepreneurs, you're modeling for your kids what's possible. And I love that your audience are entrepreneurs because you're showing your kids what it's like to have passion, to follow your dreams and all those things. And that modeling is more important than anything you're directly telling your kids. So give yourself a huge pat on the back. And I say that whether your business thrives and gets you where you want to go or whether somehow it doesn't, you're showing your kids a model. And a lot of times as parents, we kind of give up on our dreams and we want our kids to be successful, but then we actually lose some of our power to parent because they intrinsically know that we haven't rocked it at our lives. So rocking it at our lives is really important, and I want to honor that. So if that means that you have to not say yes to something with your kids because you're going to work for a couple hours, yes, your kids are important, but nowadays we've actually gotten too child-centric often, and that feeds into our children's anxiety. So allow them some time to be bored, and keep modeling somebody rocking it and going for what they want in life.
Allow them to be bored. Oh, I just laugh because it was like every time our girls come, oh, I'm bored. I was like, how can you be bored, man? You got to park over there. You got this, you got that. You know, it's like, I'm never bored.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and so you're modeling for them not being bored. You're modeling a full, rich life, which is phenomenal and so important. And you can just put it back on them and say, curious what you'll figure out. And you also, there are specific tips you can do too, but if you shift the energy, it's not your job to figure out how to solve their boredom, and it doesn't sound like you're going there. But yeah, just be curious. Wonder how you're going to fix that.
Oh, I mean, what a great interview. I mean, Jacqueline, I cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your knowledge today. It was inspirational, and I hope our viewers will find it inspirational. And again, for anybody that's looking for any more information on Great Parenting Simplified, please go to their website, greatparentingpractices.com. You can click on it in the comment section. Jacqueline, thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
My pleasure. And I'll correct one thing. GreatParentingSimplified.com actually at the moment redirects, but we are launching a new website in the near future. So you can just remember Great Parenting Simplified. Great Parenting Practices is what I started out with in 2005. Which is crazy.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go.
Yeah.
It's amazing how it's all evolved. Businesses, as people, it's all one moving little locomotive.
Sure is. And Jade, thank you so much. I absolutely love what you do. And I love that you and Krista work together with the community now, because I know that she has such a mental health focus as well. And it's just a really huge issue. Maybe if I can end with saying too, if you're a stressed, overwhelmed parent, my experience is we work too hard and we're willing to keep working hard thinking that's going to help our kids, but it actually will help our kids more if we reduce our stress and overwhelm.
Oh, I agree. Your parents kind of, your kids, you know, they look up to you and they watch you. And if you're stressed and you're always this and you're going, they're just going to assume, and that's a bad thing. Excellent. Well, thank you again, Jacqueline. Enjoy your day, and I look forward to talking with you again. I definitely have to have you on in a few months.
Thank you, Jade. I'll be delighted to come back. And to everyone, you are sheroes, you're heroes, you're doing a phenomenal job. So hope everyone really takes time to celebrate yourself and what a crazy time you're parenting in.
It is a crazy time. All right. Thank